I'm curious about how
Yeah.
you define a successful fellowship. Is it about a project, gaining broad attention, sparking a public dialogue, influencing newsroom practice, or something else? And then the person is asking, if we follow fellows' work after the program, and what kind of long-term impact have we seen? So that's kind of a two-parter.
Okay. Do you want to take part one and I take part two?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
Um, you know, we don't put a marker, we don't put a metric that broad attention, broad dialogue, or changing a newsroom practice, by May, 9 months after you become a fellow. That is not our definition of success. We often tell fellows you should not expect to be done. The challenges and issues that we're all facing and dealing with in journalism are big, even when they're small and in a local area, they're often big,
Mhm.
and change takes time. So, part of our goal is to help you focus in on what you want to work on and accomplish and get you as far down the road so you're prepared to continue and go forward with it. So, but it's not about um, did it get huge public attention during the fellowship, or is it drawing? It's certainly not about publishing things like white papers or causing a whole newsroom reorganization by May. Those are just not realistic goals. Do
Yeah.
you want to talk about some of we do follow fellows' work.
Oh
We have a
yeah. Oh
lot of
yeah.
alumni, so we don't always know everything. We try to get
Yeah.
them to tell us. But you want to talk a little bit about how we think about long-term impact and some of the
Yes.
things we've seen?
Yes, exactly. So we are very interested in, as I mentioned in the beginning of this, investing in you for the long term. So this is if you're a fellow, this is the first year of our investment. So we are following your work on social. We're sharing your work on social and your wins and things that happen for you. We have seen, as Pam mentioned, it's not that you're going to maybe finish in a nice tied up little bow what you're working on. We see people a year later, 2 years later, create a organization or create a new situation or new job for themselves in their current organization. We see people who have hired each other over the years in the fellowship. So there's all kinds of ways to have future impact, and we definitely keep in touch with you and want to promote your work and what you're doing. And I think tied into that, I'm seeing a lot of questions about leadership. And so one of the things that I want to be clear on, we want to be clear on, this is not, when we say leadership, we don't mean that you need to be, you know, the top person in a news organization or you need to have a fancy title. Really, it is about that you're taking the initiative to make things better in journalism. You want to be a change agent because you see things that need to be made better, that could be better with ideas that you have maybe you started something in your newsroom or maybe you've seen a trend that you're really interested in that you have already done some dabbling and work on and you want to spend some time experimenting on that. This is a great place for that. So leaders are change agents. That's the way we think about that. So that's a great definition.
Yeah, you've answered. I see some of these questions. I want to be
Mhm.
just a little pointed about it. Someone said, "Isn't it enough to improve as a journalist and enlighten the community in journalism?" And I think we would say that requires leadership.
It
Even
does.
even if your title is a reporter,
Yeah.
that requires leadership to be able to
Yes.
actually really do that. So we think,
Yeah.
as you said,
Yeah.
very broadly about this. But yes, the first part of that person's question is, do I have to have the goal of becoming a leader? Yeah. Doesn't mean you have to have the goal of being an editor or a manager or anything, but if you aspire to help, lead journalism wherever you are.
And
Um,
some people, it's interesting. I'm going to just continue on the leadership thing for a minute because it is a word we use and really like to use. It is, people sometimes think, oh, I don't want to define myself as a leader. I don't know if I'm a leader. And maybe that's a leftover from some old school, bosses we've had who we didn't really like. And you don't want to be that person, but that's not what this is about. This is about you coming up with interesting creative ideas and experimenting and helping by being a change agent, making things better for your newsroom, for your career, for other journalists. And so it can be a whole lot of things. So don't count yourself out as a leader.
So here's a process question, and we often get versions of that. So I know while sometimes we
Okay.
want to not take much time with those, someone is asking, and I can answer this, I can
Okay.
ask and
Okay.
answer it, is
Sure.
saying, I'm a US citizen living outside of the US. I've mostly worked for US outlets. I'm interested in reaching both US and international audiences with my journalism. Should I apply as a US or international fellow? And
Mhm.
can I put both for the eligibility
Okay.
question about which
Yeah.
audiences I want to reach?
Right.
So we have, I can take a guess and look at this and say that you're probably going to be a US applicant. But for anybody, do the little quiz. It's right at the beginning. You have to do it before you can get to the application. And just answer. There's very few questions there. And yes, you can say both. If your aspiration is just I want to be sure people know it's not that there's a magic answer that's going to get you a fellowship or not. If you want to serve US, if you want to serve international, if you want to serve both, say that. And then do the form, submit it. And if you have a concern about the answer, there's an email address there on the form. Email us and ask us, and we'll take a look. And, if we think, oh, you really should have been in US instead of international, we'll work with you to address that. So
Right.
don't
I
overthink
see
it.
it.
Just answer those questions.
Just answer.
Okay.
Yeah, and email us if you have questions. We have an email, yep, and we do watch it. I see a quick one, I think, which just says, does previous journalism fellowship elsewhere affect an applicant's chances at JSK? So, um, some people do more than one fellowship. It is if you have just had one of our cousin fellowships, we're very different, but Michigan wonderful Knight Wallace Fellowship or the Neiman last year, you probably don't need us because there's a lot of other people need these spots, and you've already had a campus journalism experience, a campus fellowship. If you are, it depends. So if there are other things that you have MTC or you have done an international journalism ICFJ fellowship, those are not disqualifying. I would say we sometimes if people have done like 10 of those, you probably may not, we're not sure if this is what you need to do next, but it's really individual. So it doesn't disqualify you. Just put what you've done and certainly you can apply. Okay, what else we got here? Let's
So, here's a question. It's kind of long. I don't think we need to get into all the details, but it goes to an important point we often hear about. The person says, I have two very different project focus ideas. One connects more clearly and deeply with my experience recently, and the other connects with my experience but is not as deep and it's more geared toward cutting edge tech, and would be a fit at Stanford. How do you recommend I choose between these two?
Yeah, I like number one. I mean, if you have something that you are already starting to play with, work on that is in your experience, you're going to get farther and have more ability to experiment and to work on this here at Stanford. It does not need to be a technology project. We are, yes, in the, Silicon Valley and the home of innovation. Innovation does not equal technology. This is actually a thing that I probably have to say every 5 minutes because where innovation could be something very non-techy. Technology is fantastic. We all use it. We all need it. But it does not need to be a technology project. It should be something that you have passion about, that you have some experience. You don't have to have it all figured out. We want you to have questions, but something that you're really is relevant to what you're doing. Do you agree, Pam?
Yeah, all I would add is to reemphasize your point, go with what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Don't it We see people do this It doesn't
Mhm.
usually work well when someone tries to come up with an idea that they think will excite us, that they think will get them the fellowship.
Right.
And so, go with the one you're the most interested in, feel the strongest about. And if it turns out that's not a fit for the program for what I mean, people every year we have far more people who apply than can get a fellowship. So it's not about the idea. That is not why someone doesn't get a fellowship offer. So you can't really game that, if you will. I'm not saying this person who asked this question is trying to game, but it
No,
goes
no,
back to
no.
something
Yeah.
you said at the beginning about being authentic. Be
Yeah.
true to yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't want to spend 9 months, you're not that excited about something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you
It's
think
really,
we
yeah.
might like it, you
No,
know.
don't do that. Don't. I see a really interesting, good question. Is this a good option for a professional with a young child? And so I'm going to say a little something. And then Pam, you had two kids when you were here as a fellow. So I'd like you to. So first of all, we are really, we value families and we are a family friendly program. And so in case I'm going to add a couple things here to this really good question. So you can bring your spouse or partner with you. And I think there are very few opportunities around the US or even the world where your spouse or partner can be here if they want to or not. It's up to them to sit in on some classes. There are some limitations, but there's a lot of opportunities. They can come to our workshops and our seminars and our stories. So that's the partner piece. And then we have kids every year. I don't know, every year it depends. Pam's class, I think there were 26 kids, which was kind of wild. We had I think we had five-year-old boys. That was who. So what about coming with a kid and especially a little kid?
Yeah, I mean, there's adjustments to it. So I
Mhm.
don't want to sugarcoat it. It can be, the move can be a little tough. And then if you've got an infant, you're going to need to find some childcare. So there's things you have to navigate. But, we give advice, and um, parents often find it to be, now my kids were 6 and they were twins, and they are twins. Um, it was a wonderful year. I had more time with them. I was very busy during my fellowship year, but I got to have more time with them, more time with less stress going on in the background.
Mhm.
And they made wonderful friends. It's really always great, no matter how old they are. Of course, the little ones don't remember it later, but
Yeah.
to see fellowship kids from all over the world come together, and often the kids, like they grab onto the change and everything faster than the adults. And to see them together, because we have some social events that families are very welcome to and included. And it's always fun to see kids from around the world having an opportunity to be together. But, last year we had several families with young ones, like 3 and under.
Hmm.
And, I think they would tell you that they had more time with their kids, that it was a good year as a parent.
Great. Here's a good one. These are all good ones, by the way. Can you tell us about some fellows who've been chosen who don't hold a traditional journalism role? You want to take a couple, Pam, and I'll do some too.
So I'm trying to
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about.
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by traditional journalism. There's a lot of variety these days, but, we have a fellow this year, Candace Mays, who is with Mapping Black California. She's a data geek. She's a mapping geek. She has not had a traditional journalism background, but she was really exciting for us to pick as a fellow because of all the work she's doing in data, in mapping, in diverse communities.
And she came into that from outside journalism. She
Yes,
came into
definitely,
that work.
definitely,
She's had a
definitely.
very different background. We've had, 2 or 3 people over the years. We had someone who was a game designer for mobile games in a tech company. He was
Mhm.
passionate about journalism. He'd had a little experience with it as a freelancer. He really wanted to put his engineering skills to service.
Mhm.
So, back when blogging was kind of still a thing, we had, someone who was running a very popular sort of pop culture, current events, social blog who had not had any experience in a quote traditional newsroom.
Right.
But, so we define it pretty broadly.
Yeah.
We will have everybody from people from, well-known or traditional newsrooms to people who've started their own things or people who've come into journalism from other fields.
Right.
And the mix is always great. People learn from each other.
They definitely
I
do.
I see one here.
Okay, go.
I worked as an investigative journalist for a decade, currently doing investigative work independently, though I am not affiliated with a specific media outlet. Am I eligible to apply?
Yes. If you are doing work in journalism, if you are doing work that's real, we talked about a couple people that were a bit different, but you don't need to be affiliate. You don't have to have a staff job to be apply. We have had what used to be called freelancers. I don't even know what you call them now, independent, for decades, and just about every class has had somebody like that. Okay,
So
Pam.
along those lines,
Oh,
can
good.
we ask this other, see if
Yeah,
it
yeah,
answer
yeah.
this one from someone who's an audience engagement editor.
Okay,
Do not have a work sample in the last few years. Can I still apply?
what do you think?
Yes. Yes. And what you should do, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think the application still says something like if you're a manager or leader, you can write a memo, you can submit a memo about, your work
Yeah,
and the things you do. So just use that and email us if you don't remember this or aren't clear on it. And just, and there's a word limit on it, but just, tell us more about that role and how you have, worked in it and what you consider some of your bigger accomplishments. So give us, a shape of that, maybe an example if you ran some sort of ongoing initiative or effort around engaging an audience, you could give
yeah.
us a little case example. So yes,
Doesn't have to be clips.
no,
Doesn't have to be
does
clips.
not have to be
Here's
clipped.
a really good one that I think, Pam, I think you should take, but I'm happy to jump into. Can you talk about how, because Pam is in charge of our selection and our application changes. Can you talk about how the application has changed so that it no longer requires a focus question on the particular challenge you want to address in journalism versus more of a question where we see ourselves in 3 to 5 years? Does this mean we don't need to come with a particular challenge we want to explore?
We have played with a lot of different approaches to this. And, when we find that maybe the answers, they're not bad, but they're not giving us much information, we decide at some point, well, maybe it's the question. And so we've kind of walked away from that. People go straight to with a challenge or problem, they go to a project that needs to be finished by the end of the year.
Kind of like a grant or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you will see in the application there is a question that is about, and maybe you've looked at the application, whoever asked the question, but it is about that we ask you to tell us what you want to focus on, and focus your work on, to help you pursue the next phases of your career. And we give a couple of examples of what that could be. So it could be that you want to work through an idea for something new that you want to start. It could be that you want to prepare for like some organizational change in an organization that you're going to help lead. So it's a little broader approach just because people were getting really drilled into thinking they had to sort of almost identify a product or something. And we believe it's kind of an obvious cliche at this point, but
Yeah.
the problems in journalism are not going to be solved by one person or one solution or one organization. And people were trying to go to that. So, um, if you have more questions about that, email us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's not a like a grant application. It's more like, what do you want to be? Focusing on. Okay, here's a good one. Do I need a letter of support from my organization or boss to apply? I think they want to keep me in my position working, so they may not be open to me taking time off. So we have, you do not need letters. We stopped doing letters a few years ago. Too many paper cuts in the old days. But also just, it got to be too much. And so what we ask for are three references, recommendation or references, Pam, I forget the word, but
You can
yeah,
call either one either
yeah.
way, but I
And
would
so
call it a reference.
three people who know you and your work well. This was, it's not like you want to go, wow, I once met the president of Poland, so I'm going to put him down because it's a big name. I no, three people that know you and your work. Why? How do you know? How do they know you? And so we can, and then contact information. Now, we are not going to contact every single person that you put on this, but we want to have that option. So you don't need a letter. You do need three names. And so you don't, you got to work out the approval with your organization of whether you're going to come back or not. That's really up to you and how you work that out with your organization. And if you were selected and you wanted some advice on that at some point, we could provide that, but it really is up to you. Okay, we got more questions. Let's see what we got.
So here's one about it's semi-related. In what ways have you seen employers work with employees who become fellows and leave for 9 months? In other words, how can I pitch this to my boss?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, you got to decide if you want to pitch it to your boss. And if you do, the best advice, realistically, not a lot of people get paid, get leaves, like guaranteed returns. Some places will still do that. We don't really keep track of any of that since we don't require anybody to agree to that. But I know from fellows' experience that usually those who got something like that, either they were in an organization that just really wanted to keep the person and the person had enough flexibility, or they were able to talk about this as something that they wanted to go work on something that might benefit that organization in some way, not necessarily a product, but help them be more effective when they came back. Or explore something around, uh, some issue in journalism or problem, and maybe they're going to find some things that organization might want to apply. So they make it about that rather than about just them. I want to go do this because I want to be a better journalist,
right. Yeah.
even if that's an important part of it, which it is.
Right. It's like it's a negotiating tactic, right? It's well, how can you make this be about them and what is beneficial to them if you want
Yeah.
to? Yeah. Okay, we got lots of questions. Let's see what we would like to do here. Mm-mm-mm. Um,
Okay, here's one that
okay,
is I think we should, manage expectations. This
okay,
is someone who would have to move across the country with a child and a husband, and the child is a 6-year-old is neurodivergent, have to find a school with special needs. How much assistance is given, if any, in helping settle families? Where do fellows with families live? Do we find the housing, et cetera? And it's extremely pricey. Yes, it is pricey. And we don't want to paint that overly rosy. We have raised our stipend substantially in the last 3 years to help reflect that. The schools here are quite good, and we've had fellows with neurodivergent children who've been happy with the school experience. The reason I wanted to address this because sometimes people don't understand. Campus housing is not available to fellows. There's a lot of grad students who don't, you're not really a grad student. You're sitting in on classes. You're not getting a degree, but there's just not enough campus housing. So we have some relationships with some long time, like local landlords, a few. We try to match make, we give some advice. We can't be in the middle of all that. We're not going to negotiate a lease or anything. We try to give you tips. Um, and answer questions, and then but you need to decide where you're going to live and which place to take, because it's for you and your family over that year, and you know best what you can do. But we have someone on our team who gives a lot of wise advice and tips and is available to answer questions. So we do what I think is as much as we can, but don't assume. I just heard a fellow recently in the current class say, "Well, why can't we get in?" Who thought maybe they could get on a waiting list for campus housing, and it's just not possible. We wish we could do that, but that's not an option. But I mean, also, I'm not sure you really want to live in graduate student housing with the family. There are grad students with families, but it's, a noisier life. So
Right. Yeah. Um, well, here's an interesting political question. Has the program had to adjust in any way because of the current political pressure on higher education in the US? Well, there is a lot of pressure on higher education. There's a lot of pressure on journalism in the United States and around the world. We are being ourselves. We have a lot of great support at Stanford from the department that we're in, from the humanities and sciences school that we're in. We are very, they love what we do. So I would only say that, we are very mindful of what's going on. We have needed to help some of our international fellows, making sure they get into the country. And that was, they all did. It was great. But so it's more watching what's happening and, so far so good. We're in good shape.
and we've not nobody's told us to hold back on
No,
anything.
no, no, no.
There's a lot of angst, right
Yeah,
now in all of higher ed, but nobody's, told us to change the way we work.
no, no.
So,
Yeah, just I thought I would just tackle that one. Yeah.
so how strict are we about applicants being journalists by profession? I lead a nonprofit that works in media and communications, but I'm not a journalist by trade. I would say if the work you do supports journalists and journalism,
Right.
then where you should apply.
Yeah.
Where you go from there, So it's about that. Like in the olden days, before as the program was changing, the example we would have given is like, so maybe you're on the advertising side or the business side, in a news organization. You're supporting the journalists. I mean, I think that's clear now that we all want to support all of them. But yeah, so if this nonprofit is working to support journalism and journalists and further it, then you should consider yourself eligible to apply.
Yep. And there's all kinds of interesting organizations that support journalism, things, civic media sorts of things and nonprofits. So I think you should apply. Okay, what else? Let's see.
I like this one. Tell us a little more about how much access we get to specialists at Stanford, especially in scientific or tech fields, which we might want to bulk up our experience for our beats. Can we take classes and do interviews with some of the top people?
So there are so many amazing people here at Stanford, right? And to be able to sit in on classes, and you can sit in on a number of different classes. I mean, there's you don't want to sit in on hundreds, but there are hundreds of classes, maybe thousands, with some amazing people who are doing really great work. You also, depending on what the class is and what your interests are, could meet with them for coffee or office hours, or find a one-on-one way to talk with this person. There are also people giving great, amazing talks and some researchers, and there's labs who are doing interesting work, not just, well, science labs, but all kinds of political science labs and other things as well. So you have access to a lot of people. And the thing is, our program is known at Stanford in quite a few places. We've been here since 1966. There's always new people that come to Stanford and teach and such, but we're known, pretty well known. And so there are many times where people are like, oh my gosh, okay, you're a fellow. We'd love to talk to you. I send a letter out to hundreds of faculty at the beginning of the year, introducing the class and say, please welcome them into your classes, into your research labs and take them for a cup of coffee, or you can buy them coffee. And so then people will use that letter to go, oh, yes, the JSK fellows. So definitely many, many possibilities.
There's many ways to pursue what you want to work on that are not just taking classes. And to Don's point, there's a lot of people at Stanford that actually fellows find that it's much better to go have coffee with them than
Mhm.
take their class.
Right, right.
And people are generally very open to that. So you have
Yeah.
a lot of opportunities. Someone says, I've spoken to an alumni in this year's cohort. I can assume that mean the one that ended in May. Just wondering, what has changed in terms of the types of candidates you are looking for next year? I would say nothing.
I was gonna say, is there some, Pam, is there a secret you haven't told me?
No, I mean, the qualities that make a great journalist actually run through many years. We may change a little what we're talking about, or we definitely change what we do with each group because we try to respond to what we see the group needs and
Yeah.
trends. So, but the qualities of being open, collaborative, questioning, respectful, and really wanting to learn from each other in addition to the resources at Stanford. Those, and you're no brilliant jerks. That runs across all years.
Yeah, decades and decades. I see one that I really like. Um, what does it mean to do things better? Does it have to do with better journalistic practices? Goes on. How would you define a change agent? So to me, and Pam, jump in here too if you want. I think of people who the status quo is not good enough. Journalism has many problems, and I love journalism, and it's a messy, wonderful field. But it's not fixed. There's a lot of things that need help, and so a change agent wants to go in and go, this could be better. We could do better. We should do better. So how do we do that? And so not being a person who is like, well, yeah, it's okay. I'm just going to go along and get along. So that to me is somebody who really takes the initiative to do things better and doesn't really accept the status quo. So that's how I define it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So here's a question. I'm an ADHD journalist struggling severely with communication and organization. AI tools have been useful in assisting me to organize my thoughts, but will that be a disadvantage for my application?
So Pam, go ahead. We want to talk about it.
Not as long as you disclose it.
Yeah.
When you'll find that in the application, we state sort of what we think is acceptable. And then we ask you a couple of questions. And we're basically asking you to tell us how you used it, why you used it, what the purpose was. So, asking AI to write, and that's not what this person is talking about. Asking AI to prepare your application from the ground up is not going to serve you well. Um, but using it as a tool in this way, that's fine. As long as you tell us. And it's actually really helpful for us to learn how someone's used it and why. So generating your application from the ground up, no. But organizing your thoughts, making sure you're not repeating things, it's almost like, testing and proofing, that's fine.
Mhm. Yeah. Here's one. Do you try to include only a certain number of fellows from a particular medium? For example, could there be two public radio reporters in one cohort, or two people from small local newsrooms in the same region? Yeah. I
Yes,
mean, we wouldn't want to have 10, like
right,
10 public radio people from New York City. But we
right.
definitely, there's no like quota on, okay, two public radio, to this, to that. So we like the mix, but we have had two public media people in a class recently. I forget what year, recently. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Um,
we've got 10 more minutes. Ooh, what else?
Do you have an alumni community or outreach that you do after the fellowship ends?
Yay, I love this question.
I know it's one of your favorite topics. So,
So Pam and I are both alums as well. So we are alums. We love the alumni community. One of the things that we have always had a supportive alumni, but we're building and building because the community is just getting to wonderful critical mass of people out there. So we have a newsletter. Which we send all of our alumni, which talks about what's going on and connecting people to opportunities. We have meetups virtual and in person. Um, Things like, I mean, we have some social meetups, but we also have, just the other day, we had a wonderful session called Your Career River, and it was talking about careers we always think of as ladders or used to. What about your career in a different format? We attend a number of conferences, and fellows and alumni attend these conferences, and we always have meetups at those events. We do a lot of coaching. Pam and Alberto and Georgie and I are always, like I think I mentioned earlier, every week one of us is talking to somebody by phone, by Zoom, in person about their path and how we can help and trying to help them think through the next steps they're taking. Our alumni is how we have impact in the world. And so this is, we really are very supportive and want to make things happen. So did I miss anything?
no, I see two quick ones we might be
Okay.
able to get to. One is,
Okay.
are there structured opportunities for feedback on prototypes or storytelling approaches? Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
And a lot of that, in what I would say are, in many groups, a lot of that also that comes from each other. So we encourage fellows, and fellows will tell you that the most important part of the year is what they learned from each other. So often we do some peer-to-peer opportunities, or we encourage fellows to organize their own, and they will show somebody what they're working on or thinking about because there's a lot of wisdom in the room.
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, if someone's kind of working on an idea or a problem, there's either someone else who's also working on some aspect of that or interested in it, or who has had experience with it. And so we really encourage fellows. And we do some things in our program to encourage it and provide opportunities for we're very much about learning by doing and what we call tiny experiments. So testing things out. Don't wait until they're perfect in your mind before you share them with anybody. So there's a sort of a robust set of activities around that.
Right.
Another one is what types of projects and goals are you looking to see in the application? Are they supposed to be centered on journalism, or can I work on getting more skills to report on a specific beat?
Yeah, improving specific professional skills, um, deepening your knowledge, expertise of a certain coverage area is certainly, you're not learning journalism. I mean, this is not a journalism, we're a journalism program, but you're not learning journalism. You already have learned journalism. You're going to be learning more about different ways to do it, but it's not like journalism 101. So it doesn't need to be that kind of a project. I think you definitely, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, and my other piece of advice on that is if what you're proposing to do is getting more skills to report on a specific beat, it should be a beat you have experience in,
Right.
so you can make the case. And, don't just say, well, I want to be better at it. And don't assume we know everything. Make your case for why it's important to you, why it's important to your community, and what gap do you feel like you have. It doesn't have to even be a skills gap, but just like,
Mhm.
I want to get better at whatever, just because I think it'll make me more effective in covering this important area.
Right.
So, make your make your case about that.
Yeah.
Someone also asked, you told us you slightly change the application every year. What is the most important point you are focusing on this year?
Ooh.
So I want to be sure to be clear. We changed the application. This year, it's mostly tweaks. It's not a dramatic change. We have
Right.
made dramatic changes before,
Yeah.
but it's more about we learn each year. from reading applications, well, maybe we should have asked that question a little sharper, or maybe we should have done this or that, or maybe there is something new on our minds, generally speaking, or we're seeing in a pool. So I'm just not going to ever tell you that there's one part of the application that is the most important because there's not. I mean, what's important is that you be thoughtful in your answers, you be authentic in your answers, you start early and give them thoughts, think it through, start working on your answers. You know, you don't have to work inside the application
Hmm.
and make your case.
Yeah.
So, because the reason we have it structured the way we do, instead of you writing one long essay, is because we found that we used to have long essays. We found we get better, more deep, clearer picture of people, and it's less intimidating if they don't
Yeah.
have to put everything in one
Yeah.
essay. It's also easier for us to learn more.
Sure.
So it's not structured like that because we want to call out one question over another.
No.
Every part of it is important.
Right. We are running out of time. It's amazing, but I see two quick ones I think we can answer. Can references be a JSK alum? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm an investigative journalist, data analyst, and AI practitioner. I have worked on various entrepreneurial projects, and now I combine all my experience to serve the next generation of journalism. Is that fine? Yes.
Yes.
Uh, 3 minutes. Can we do one more question or two?
I'm
Let's
sure we
see.
probably can. Is it necessary to list my current employer as one of the references? No.
Oh,
What is the reasoning behind using a 1 minute selfie video for the self-introduction instead of another format?
okay. Because Dawn loves it. No, I do love the selfie
All
videos.
love it.
It's a
Yeah.
wonderful way just to get a 1 minute view of you. And, everything else is on paper. And it's like, oh, I just want to see this person say something and think about what they are doing in their life and get a quick visit on a video. And no fancy videos needed, just a selfie video. Okay. Maybe one more before we get to the end. Is there another pressing one? And please, we'll be answering more questions in our next webinar if you have not, and you can email us if your question didn't get answered. We tried to get to as many as we could. Is there a good closer here? Yes, the fellowship timeframe is September 2026 to May 2027.
Hmm.
Um, mm, mm, mm.
There's someone here talking about I want to work on solutions journalism, constructive journalism to change newsroom practice and give a new way to journalism. I think this could create lasting impact. Can this planning be suitable for this fellowship? Yes, I mean, if you are trying to, you want to spend time sort of thinking through and working out a model or a plan for something that you're going to take back into a newsroom or a new newsroom and work on it, then you can propose that. So producing a big white paper to try to change the whole industry is probably not realistic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Okay, one more. It says, are fellows encouraged to collaborate across fellowship projects? And if so, how is collaboration between fellows facilitated? So fellows each of you come in with something you want to work on. There definitely have been collaborations across during the year, and sometimes people change what they're working on because they find somebody in their group that is really compelling, that they think, hey, synergy here is really great. The collaboration is we all are together a couple of times a week, and then the fellows have their own set up their own other meetings, and it really is as the groups together. So we're not matchmaking, but you might find someone to collaborate with, because that's a lot of what we do is collaboration. Quick tips here. Don't procrastinate. Know why Stanford and JSK is right for you. Be authentic. Be yourself. We don't need you to try to be something you're not. That's pretty clear. We find that out very easily. Know who we are. Do your homework. Talk to alumni and beat the deadline. Don't miss this opportunity to apply for this fellowship. Your future self is going to thank you for doing that. And if you apply, and we really hope you do, your application will be read carefully by real people. And we select a small number of people to interview. It is very competitive, but if you don't apply, you don't get in. And so we're going to offer and announce fellowships, interviews, and then offer and announce fellowships this spring. So if you have a passion for reimagining journalism, if you want to help, yourself in your career, in addition, if you're at this webinar and you're eligible, I think you really should apply. So follow our links on the social media. Our inbox is open, JSK fellowships at stanford.edu. We do watch it. Thank you for attending, and we're looking forward to reading your application.